All right, welcome to the StarCommand podcast, college football edition. Before we get started, if you would hit the like and subscribe button, share it with your friends, help us out, and get this spread around the world. All right, Alan. So last weekend was a huge weekend in college football. We were talking earlier this week that of all the big games that we talked about, the Texas and Oklahoma, Oregon and Ohio State, Tennessee, Florida, all the different games that we talked about. We missed games like Ole Miss and LSU, and the South Carolina Alabama game ended up being really good. And I know from talking with you, right, that both of us were stuck on the Oregon Ohio State game. Like I obviously watched the Oklahoma Texas game earlier in the day, but I missed a lot of the other good games because of this Oregon Ohio State game. And not that it was disappointing. An entire rule got changed because of the ending of this game. They couldn't even make it a whole week. By Wednesday they decided, oh, we've got to change this rule. Dan Lanning looked like an absolute genius. Ohio State didn't look like a scrub, though I do have some questions about their defense. After watching this game, it didn't look as dominant as we thought it might be. So all in all, I felt like that game gave us everything that we wanted and more, really.
Agreed. Eugene was rocking. What a game. It was tick for tack. Those teams stayed even the entire game, which made it even better. It was 22-21 at half. Oregon up by one, and that held course. They tied in the second half. And it was just evenly matched. Big surprise was, like you mentioned, Ohio State's defense was the fact that Oregon was able to run, was able to gash them for big runs like they were.
Right.
The quarterback can get hot and just be on fire and hit you for passes consistently, but their running game looked really good. They were explosive and just two heavyweight fighters going at it, and I mentioned previous podcasts about, man, I wish Alabama and Georgia could play 5 times. Just another one that I would 5 times let those guys face off 5 times a year, and it's
Right.
they would be legit. I'd buy tickets. So very good game. Ohio State, of course, doesn't fall very far in the rankings because they lost to number three, Oregon. But we'll see those two teams in the playoff again, and look forward to it.
We may even see them in the Big Ten championship. The big thing about the rules this year is all of these conferences have gone away from East versus West, or however they were dividing up their divisions. They've all kind of gone away from divisions and gone to just whoever the best two teams are in the conference. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. Ohio State definitely still has a couple of big games on their schedule. Penn State, I know Michigan's not the same as it's been the last couple of years, but that's usually a game that's hard fought to the end. So in one of those games, it can go either way. Yeah, I thought Dan Lanning did an amazing job coaching. Right, the little onside kick where they just kicked it directly into the guy that was right in front of him. Didn't even go 10 yards, but because it touches him, it becomes a live ball no matter what. Um, I thought he outcoached what's his name over there? I
Ryan
can't.
did.
Yeah, Ryan Day. He outcoached Ryan Day that day. And Ryan Day's a great coach, but he got outcoached that day. I think the biggest disappointment for me from that game was the player getting ejected for spitting. At the end of the game, top wide receiver. No matter what's going on over there, you've got to keep your cool. The pushing and shoving. I was talking to my girlfriend about it because we were watching that game, and there's just no place for that in the game. It's disappointing when a big game on a big stage like that has something like that happen. He got ejected, so it is what it is. But I would say that that's the only disappointing thing that I had from that game. So moving into this week's games, I think we decided to focus on these two SEC games that are coming up because of the implications that they have not only in the SEC but on the playoff picture as a whole. Right, you've got two one-loss teams in Alabama and Tennessee facing off. Usually a hard-fought game. Alabama does not. I mean, I watched them against South Carolina last week, and their defense is absolutely horrible. And if you can get any kind of pass rush on Jalen Milroe, even though he has the legs to run, if you design your rushes the right way, you can completely shut him down. South Carolina should have won that game last week. And then you have Texas versus Georgia, who's another one-loss team. You have Texas, who is 0-5 against top five teams in Austin since like 2000. So since 2000, they've beat zero top five teams at their home stadium. So it's a statement game for Texas. If you really want to prove that you're here and you are who you are who what we believe you are, this is your time to prove it. Top five team coming into your place. Georgia's been the star of college football for the last 5 years. You know, if you really want to make a statement on your first year in the SEC, it's to beat Georgia at home this year. And it's granted not the Georgia team of the last 5 years. Their secondary has some question marks. Their offensive line isn't as strong. And really, Carson Beck doesn't look like the same quarterback without his targets, Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey. You know, without having those familiar faces around him, he doesn't seem like he trusts his receivers as much. So we've got two big ones going down today.
Yeah, jumping on the Texas Georgia game, I think I'm more my eyes are on who is Georgia. I think Texas has proven they're legit. They're gonna show up. They're gonna keep this a good game. Can Georgia score with Texas? Can Georgia's defense go in there and put up a statement game and say, "Hey, we're the big dogs."
Yeah,
Start barking and saying, this is legit SEC competition right here. Or does Texas, get a two touchdown win? I think we all know who Texas is. I'm really interested to see can Georgia go into Austin and shut the naysayers up and let everybody know, hey, we're still here, and that's what it would do. Texas.
yeah,
Texas wins, nobody's going to be surprised. Georgia, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia won either. And I think you would agree,
yeah,
Georgia, not at all. But I think Georgia's got more to gain off of this because that puts them right back in that top five, being the number 1, 2 seed,
yeah.
and gives them the upper hand in the SEC.
Yeah, I agree with that. And not only does Georgia have more to gain from winning this game, they also have more to lose from losing this game, right? We were discussing earlier this week that, you know, we're fairly confident that a two-loss SEC team is going to get in over even a one-loss Big 12 team, and definitely over a one-loss Group of Five team. Maybe even a one-loss Big 10 team if it comes down to, you know, they're matched up evenly. The only difference is they have one loss and they have two. Well, we all know history has proven itself that the SEC team will get in over any of those teams. So I feel like with two losses, you can still get in. But then moving forward, Georgia has to play absolutely perfect the rest of the season. Whereas if Texas happens to lose this game, it's only one loss. It's against the number 5 team in the country. It's your first year in the SEC. You've got a little bit more grace moving forward for the rest of the year. Granted, with a bunch of big games coming up, but it's a little bit easier to swallow the pill with one loss than if Georgia goes on and gets their second loss, which is the same thing that we're looking at that Alabama-Tennessee matchup, right? Tennessee lost to Arkansas and Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Alabama's loss is by far the worst of those, right? So neither one of these teams can really afford a second loss moving forward, because if one of your two losses is Vanderbilt or one of your two losses is, no offense, but Arkansas, because of the way those programs are viewed around college football, you may not make it in as a two-loss team going up against some of these other one-loss teams from other conferences because of the severity of those losses. So this is kind of a really must-win for both of these teams.
Absolutely, absolutely. You can't. We talked about it. Two losses, you're going to get in. Being one of these SEC teams, three losses, you're not getting in. And this is a get right game for these teams. What is your identity now? You kind of lost that. Tennessee was a juggernaut the first 4 weeks. They were best defense, best offense, and now they're average defense. Defense is still up there, top 10 defense, but the offense has just fell off. And their freshman quarterback is not converting third downs. They're
Right.
not putting up early points. And I don't see that changing against Alabama. I see this being a very tight game, low scoring, and to kind of two coaches like realizing that there's so much on the line, play calling conservative and
Yeah.
very, very tense game this one because yeah, there's a lot on the line. The other game we talked about, Texas, they can lose. You're losing to Georgia, defending champ previously. Um, it's not gonna, even though it's in Austin, not a big deal. These two and Alabama, Tennessee, yeah, huge rivalry. I mean, these guys hate each other.
Right.
They're gonna be, there's a song I'm sure at the end of the third quarter saying "F you this" and we, but it's I think this is gonna be a huge heavyweight fight that is called a conservative game where teams are literally just trying to get field goals when they can.
Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, I say that it'll be a 50-40 game, but
And I think Josh Heupel has to get Nico comfortable early. Somewhere along the way, Nico has gotten uncomfortable and he has regressed as a quarterback the last 3 weeks. And I mean, they squeaked by Florida. And the same thing with Jalen Milroe. Somewhere along the way, I don't know if it was the Vanderbilt game or what. What I mean, he hasn't looked as bad as Nico has, but he hasn't looked like that dominant presence that we saw in that the first half of that Georgia game.
yeah,
It's almost like since halftime of that Georgia game, everything's kind of shifted for Alabama.
Jalen is the best athlete on the football field 90% of the time.
Right,
And he has to look and he has to play that way and look that part for Alabama to be successful. And if he's in his head and not making plays, throwing erratic throws, they're a different team. And then Nico, yeah, he's just got to convert on third down. That's it. They got to stay on the field, convert those third and threes, third and fours, and
right.
keep moving the ball and stay on the field.
Yeah, most definitely. Um,
Two good defenses. I just really think that if the quarterback struggle, it's going to be a very, very one of those old school, who can get to 21 points.
yeah, yeah, and they both have tough games coming up after this game. At some point in time, Tennessee has to go to Athens and play Georgia, and that's going to be a really tough game. If both, especially if both of those teams are coming in with 2 losses, that's going to be hard to go into Georgia. Georgia will not allow themselves to lose 3 games, I do not think. And then Alabama has to go to LSU at the end of this season. I think LSU already has 2 losses. They just had a huge win against Ole Miss, which kind of really helps to keep their playoff hopes alive. And so if Alabama's going into LSU with 2 losses and LSU shows up with 2 losses, it's going to be it's going to be interesting moving forward. We look at these schedules going forward, and really, I think Texas has the toughest schedule going forward. We have to play Vanderbilt next week, which I know sounds crazy to say that is a tough schedule game, but the way Vanderbilt's been playing, right? They beat up, and outplay and out physical Alabama, and then they don't rest on their laurels, right? They come out the next week and just put it to Kentucky. They've got a cupcake game this week. Um, I forget who they're even playing. I saw it on there. They're like a 27-point favorite against whoever they're playing. And so Texas has Vanderbilt. We still have to go to Kyle Field in Texas A&M, and who's surprisingly playing really well. They had the early loss this year to Notre Dame, and they've been rolling ever since. Quarterback injury, bringing in, yeah,
Texas still has to go to Fayetteville.
yeah. We still have to go to Fayetteville, and while the rest of the country may look at Arkansas in this disrespectful way, if you've watched Arkansas football at all this year, which I have, they're actually playing really well. It may not have shown up in the win-loss column, late game mistakes, some coaching mistakes in there. But at the end of the day, Arkansas has been playing good football this year.
If we don't just blow up that second half in Stillwater against Oklahoma State, I mean we're 5-1.
Yeah.
If we didn't have that debacle in that second half there in Stillwater, we're a 5-1 football team with hosting LSU this weekend, and everybody's super excited. But that's that sad, when you guys play us in Texas A&M, throw out the records.
Right,
You
right,
guys don't view us the way we view Texas. We want to destroy you. We can't
right.
stand Texas. When you guys are like, oh, another game, but you're going to go to Fayetteville, and everybody's going to be ready to destroy you guys. And same
Yeah,
thing with Texas A&M, but y'all will be up for Texas A&M. I have
yeah.
no
We're
doubt.
always up for Texas A&M. They've been the
Yeah,
little brother forever. Remember, they
for
left the
sure.
Big 12 to try to get away from Texas.
But
They
hey,
was
but
running scared.
a big
But
rivalry that other people don't have to deal with, that
right.
so those, yeah, very tough schedule for you guys.
So yeah, it'll be an interesting week in the SEC. Be an interesting week in college football. There are there's a lot of other big games, but we really felt like that those were the biggest games to discuss with the most implications because they could change teams losing in these games could change playoff aspirations for other teams that are because
And
now you're starting to watch out.
one of these two lost teams, think about these matchups happening. One of these two lost teams is going to potentially wind up playing against Texas or playing against Georgia, whoever that number one seed ends up being. And then they have to go, do they take that third loss in the SEC championship game?
Right.
And then you're sitting it's going to get crazy. But I think everyone realizes that. That's why we're projecting 5 teams from the SEC to get in because,
Yeah.
yeah, just because you have all, the cream of the crop, they're going to beat each other.
Yeah. 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 They're definitely and it's proven to be true. And I think this 12-team playoff is just amazing because it allows for the speculation of maybe does if some of these other teams, if Ohio State drops another game, or if Oregon drops one game, or you know, you only get one team from the Big 12 and two teams from the Big 10 because they cannibalize each other. Could a three-loss SEC team sneak its way in at the end of the day? Can these service academies, we talked in our picks show earlier last night. You guys can check that out on YouTube right now. Is 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 there an opportunity for both these service academies who are both undefeated to figure out a way to get into the playoff? You know, um, the 12-team playoff is just between the 12-team playoff and the NIL deals that have kind of created this parity, so to speak, in college football where everybody's kind of good all at the same time and nobody's really heads and tails above the other. Uh, it's an exciting season and we got a lot of excitement in store for the rest of the season. Uh, so that being said, I think that does it for our college football episode today. Again, if you would like, subscribe, share with your friends, just help get the word out that we're out here on the Star Command podcast. With that, we are out.